Good afternoon. This is Chandra Easton here, esoteric astrologer from Living in Light, starastrologyhealing.com. Just speaking to you about some of the astrological patterns that are being set up through the month of September 2020. If you're an astrologer, it's probably easier to follow this, but if not, well, just do your best. Okay, so let's commence. So here we have in September, and the most striking pattern from an astrological perspective in this first week of September, well really for the whole month actually, is the very tight square between Saturn in Aquarius retrograde and Uranus retrograde in Taurus. And both of these are conjunct the North Node in Taurus, and Saturn, or beg your pardon, Uranus is conjunct the North Node in Taurus. Saturn is square, see the red line? Square both Uranus and the North Node, and the program hasn't drawn it here, but it's also square the South Node. So this is the most striking pattern. So think of it like a point of tension between the forces of change, that's Uranus, things that we need to change around money, around shelter, around wealth, around the land, around power, around how we resolve conflict. These are global patterns. Humanity's karma, and that's the Uranus in Taurus. And these are urgent changes. We know it's urgent because Uranus is on the destiny point, the North Node of Taurus. That's urgent that we change these patterns of livelihood and who can eat and who can't, and who has a house and who doesn't, and who has the ability to earn income and who doesn't. These are pivotal issues, and of course how they're manifesting across the globe is the cost of living's been going through the roof, and a lot of people are starving. A lot of people can't function, can't feed their families, don't have homes or houses. Now some of the housing crisis is happening because of world events like the floods in Pakistan, for instance, where, I don't know, I forget how the huge amount of people who are homeless and a lot of people dead. The square down to Saturn is the collective karma that we hold in Aquarius. And I guess I would say is how do we use the higher how do we access as a species the higher vibration of Aquarius so that we open to the group heart and we think about ourselves as one kingdom, as the human kingdom, and we have care for the animals, the vegetables, the minerals, the earth itself. That's the best use of the Aquarian energy, is the brother sisterhood of humanity. The worst use of it is that that humanity is seen as disposable, and we have this sort of merger between the the IT world, be the artificial intelligence, the AI and human, and we have the the movement towards transhumanism, which is quite terrifying. And while some might think this is just the realm of science fiction, but it's actually happening here on Earth. So that's one of the greatest dangers, in my opinion, of the Saturn in Aquarius. The other danger of Saturn in Aquarius retrograde with this restrictive, resistant impact to change is the use of people's data. I heard Catherine Austin Fitz, the wonderful economist, and she used the phrase that data is the new oil, and really that kind of says it all. That data, being able to track and trace people within an inch of their lives around their health, their social, their economic, their personal, it's worth more than money because data has become well, it's like a prison that we're all contributing to by being involved in, the world of data, the world of the World Wide Web, the social media platforms, the giving away of our data through our credit cards. Every time we tick yes, we accept the terms and conditions of whatever website that we go to, we give away a little bit more of our privacy and our data, and that would be fine if it wasn't being exploited and used for nefarious ends by individuals, by corporations, by the, what do they call them, the more than 600 startup companies, the unicorns that have profits in excess of billions of dollars. So we have we have a collective role to play, and I think it's got something to do with humanity's old karma around Atlantis. You know, Atlantis was destroyed by misuse of the technology of the time, and it seems like we've got a bit of a rerun going on. It's just like, how do we use technology? Do we use it to clean the oceans? Do we use it to feed the poor, or do we use it to line the pockets of the unicorn companies, the mega rich corporations, the Mr. Globals? You know, those that pull the strings of profit and power. Red line here between Saturn and Uranus is asking us, are we going to willingly follow that path and hand over our power, or are we going to assert the right of our sovereignty as a species, as human? Because really I think that's what it's coming down to. It's like independence and sovereignty, not just of nations, but of our physical bodies, so that we can't have this interpenetration of microchips and computers into our brains, so that we can be, so that we don't become programmable. And it sounds like something out of science fiction, but it's happening. And so the challenge here in September 2022 is about being able to recognise this, see the, I have to call it evil, the evil of this. And the evil in the chart is held in the 15th degree of Scorpio. And the 15th degree of Scorpio has a great deal to do with hatred and global hatred. And we've all contributed to this. If we've had lives on Earth over the last couple of thousand years, then we've contributed to the shadow of humankind, which manifests as this evil, this hatred against life itself. Yes, so Saturn and Uranus are in this enormous global international tug of war. And of course Saturn in Aquarius has got a great deal to do with this attempt by the Elon Musks of the world and what do they call it, the Starlink, to go out into space and to conquer space and to mine space and to control space and therefore control humanity through the satellites in space, and to control the weather. Yeah, so there's a great amount of karma that potentially we are creating as a species by misappropriation of technology, not only on the Earth, not only towards our very biology, not only in terms of grabbing the wealth that really needs to be shared with all of us, but trying to dictate and control the evolution of human species from beyond our sphere. Okay, many things to talk about. So here in this first week of September, how does this relate to us on an individual level? I've been talking about the Saturn-Uranus square and its position across the nodal axis to disrupt this old pattern of hatred. In the first week of September, the moon was moving through Scorpio and then on into Sagittarius and has crossed that. I think it's the 4th of September now I'm doing this talk. The other pattern that's set up strongly is this Mars in Gemini, with a strong square to the Sun, 8 degrees Virgo, and the Earth, 8 degrees Pisces. Mars in Gemini is technically brilliant, but lacks empathy or compassion, and can work very well if you're in the business of propaganda. So, of course, and it's also very accident prone as it comes into the Sun, and there have been a lot of, certainly here in Australia, a lot of dreadful accidents and deaths, and as well as the media spin. We've kind of had a week or two ago the media spin around what our previous Prime Minister had been up to in the abuse of power. Yeah, so many things going on there. However, if you'll notice the blue and the green and the blue lines, and the computer really should have, no, it's a bit of a wide orb. There's no green there. This is almost a mystic rectangle. And think about a mystic rectangle like a magic carpet. And so and this goes between Taurus, Virgo, Scorpio, and not quite Pisces. So if this was a complete mystic rectangle, and it does get set up on and off throughout the month, then what happens is that some of humanity find a way of navigating a way forward where we find compassion and we find resources and we unite them and we put them forward and we share them. because this is the earth and the water signs. And when we put earth and water together, we get survival. So there are paths and ways forward through survival when we open the heart of compassion and when we refuse to look the other way against hatred and evil. Okay, I think I'll leave that and go on to the second week. I'm going up to the 8th of September here, just having a look at the patterns that are set up in the second week of September. And now you'll see the mystic rectangle more completely set up between the Earth and Neptune, the North Node, Uranus, Vulcan, that's the downward pointing arrow, the Sun, the South Node. Yeah, so this opportunity or these pathways for compassion or pathways for divine support or pathways that are open through the faith that we have in each other and the capacity to bring the best out in each other. And of course, because it's Taurus and Virgo, it's to do with support for ordinary people. I heard on the radio this morning a wonderful outreach program that's happening with people who are going into the war-torn country of Ukraine with succour, with support, with medicines, with aeroplanes, funding it themselves. And so I think that's a beautiful example of this mystic rectangle for people who have the wherewithal, who can help the people who. Now, if we continue to look at that very tight square between Saturn in Aquarius, Uranus, the North Node, now we notice that the Moon, it's moved from Scorpio and it's now down here in the second week, approaching and crossing the Saturn. And so we will see on our television screens, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, I think there's a meeting happening with the members of the G7 talking about how we can shift the world economy onto a digital economy. And I didn't mention it before, but the Taurus has got a great deal to do with wherewithal and survival and therefore money. And the Aquarian impulse has a great deal to do with the removal of the fiscal economy. Certainly in the first world countries, and this is a plan that is underway from the G7 and to move us over this year 2022 and probably be, you know, in place by 2023, this sense of well, you don't need paper money and you don't need coins, and all your money is digital and it goes into a digital wallet, and it's controlled by Big Brother. And we talk about Big Brother, that's a very 1980s term, but really we have big corporations and mega corporations, there's 600 unicorn companies and those individuals who pull the strings of the world economy, who would like control of your money and my money and the Australian government's money and the Norwegian government's money. And a lot of the governments have been... some welcome it. They think this is a great move. Let's have everything digital. And of course, cash is being pointed at as something, you know, and only criminals use cash. And that's the propaganda line, you know, to make everybody feel okay with the fact that our capacity for bartering and trading and the fair exchange of work for effort is in our hands, whereas it's being hijacked and put in the hands of the mega corporations. And this is policy. This is international policy from the G7, and they're meeting somewhere in America. I think it's late September, it could be October, and they met last year with their proposals for this, and now they're fast tracking it. It's moving along at warp speed, and and you see the pattern here with Saturn with this tight square. Well, it's a 5-degree square from Saturn to the node, so this degree of hatred that's still sitting there, and I find this very evil. So I take this to be what I would refer to as the dark brotherhood, those who have no heart, no compassion, who are looking to control humanity via the artificial intelligence, via the push for transhumanism, via the attempt to remove cash and move everything to the digital realm. I remember some years ago I was visiting Sweden, and it was very noticeable to me that cash was on its way out in Sweden. I think Sweden was at the time leading the world in the removal of cash, and very proudly, you know, it was like, well, everything's digital, this is the way forward. But it has strings attached to it, and it's very dangerous, and is being manipulated, and we are being hoodwinked or blinded or coerced or driven into this new way of working and dealing and trading that is not in our own hands, is in the hands of governments. And as I said, we've had very shocking revelations in the last few weeks in Australia of the what happens when power gets into the wrong hands and is used and abused and misused. And yeah, to have one's individual earnings out of your control. And that would be fine if the governments could be trusted. But, you know, most people have heard by now of the Chinese social credit system, where the government monitors people, and if individuals in China fail to live their life according to what the Communist Party thinks is good behaviour, then they are penalised. And they're penalised through their economy, through this social credit system that is linked to their bank accounts. So this is carrot and stick from governments, so that the capacity to dissent, to have a voice of reason, to say I disagree, the tenets of democracy, you know, freedom of speech and freedom to gather, a lot of these have been eroded, outlawed. They are illegal in many countries. And this is the legacy of the pandemic. Some people might say the purpose of the pandemic. Yeah, so all of that I get from the moon approaching Saturn, and if you're not aware of this, and if you haven't seen it before, well then consider it deeply. And if you are aware, take steps to step back, step out. Secure your food sources. Find places of banking that are ethical. Set up trading networks. Here in Australia we have the what do they call it? The community exchange, the LETS system, a wonderful system of exchange and barter that doesn't involve money, but it's being run by individuals and communities, not by mega corporations. Okay, and still we have Mars in Gemini, and it still continues to square the Virgo, and so we have, as I said, the war machine is still running in Europe, and yes, I mean, we're being told that one side's good and one side's evil, whereas I'm inclined to think that it's the evil, the shadow of hatred that is part of humanity's legacy that we all have to deal with, and it's not about the good guys being, the West and NATO, and the bad guys being Russia or China. It's just not that simple. You know, we're talking about the shadow of humanity. And so we need accountability and we need ethics. And Mars in Gemini struggles with accountability and ethics. And often there's a sense of harm that is engineered one piece at a time. You know, one piece at a time. I haven't spoken. I will show you the big grand trine here, the blue grand trine between Mercury in Libra. The moon in Aquarius is on the 8th of September, and Mars, it only lasts for a day or two, but we can have, it's like clear noise or clear light that comes through white noise. You know, there's a capacity for a message to get out there, and so I would encourage everybody who is aware or awake or recognising that the group shadow is rising to work compassionately, to work with a view of the heart, a view of forgiveness, to work to open the doors to reason, and to put paid to lies or propaganda or negative gossip wherever one sees that in one's life. Did I mention that Uranus is seated in opposite the degree of ambition? And the degrees of the zodiac, the 0 to 30 through the sign of Scorpio, are extremely interesting. I have 3 talks on my website about that I've done a couple of years ago. Yes, so Uranus is opposite the degree of ambition. So what we have is global ambitions playing out. You know, they want to colonize space. They want to mine the planets. They want to you know, these mega corporations, the Mr. Bigs of the world. They want to pull the strings of the world finances. They want to take over things like the Bitcoin and put it in the government's pockets. They want to outlaw cash. They want to make it difficult for farmers, shocking as it seems, to grow food and to feed the masses, to create constriction in order to force compliance. So the global ambitions that are driven by, unfortunately, hatred are there, but we can choose. We can choose love instead of hatred and evil. We can choose ambitions that share, ambitions that unite, ambitions that are resourceful. Let me move on for another week into the third week. What date am I looking for? The 15th. So here's the third week of September. And you'll see the mystic rectangles, part of it's still there, but the other part of it's sort of fallen away a little bit. But there's still a great amount of resourcefulness between, you know, I'm sure some farmers, the permaculture people, the people who do want to share, the people who recognise. I mean, in Australia, one of the things that's been happening is an attempt to reconfigure the laws that govern, what do they call it, you know, back in the 70s and the 80s, we had the trade unions, and then they were all replaced by enterprise bargaining agreements, which have sort of made the rich richer and the poor poorer. And there's an attempt in Australia to adjust this, to bring about some sort of more equal balance between the extremely rich and the working class. And I'm hoping that you're seeing that happening in your country as well. Uranus is still sitting here in the degree of ambition. We still have, well, the south node's gone back. This is it's gone slightly backwards out of the degree of evil and hatred and backwards. Oh no, it's still in hatred, I beg your pardon. The hatred is all around the middle of Scorpio. Yes, Saturn is still sitting retrograde. So there's this sort of deadlock going on between the ambitions of the few, let's call them the greedy, wealthy people, versus the power and the compassion and the people power. And so I love this people power energy that's being set up in this third week of September, because the people power comes from these three planets in Virgo, Venus, Vulcan and the Sun. And that's our capacity to, you know, what do the old biblical texts say? Do unto others as we would have them do unto us. To walk a mile in the moccasins of your neighbour's shoes. Yes, we still have, I haven't talked about these, we still have Jupiter in Aries, we have Chiron in Aries, and some people are using the Aries energy for selfish gain. Other people are using the Aries to innovate in a way that is helpful, not harmful. Yes, Neptune's very close to the Earth here in the around the 15th of September, and we may find that we have quite prophetic dreams at the beginning of that third week of September, or we have insights, or it may be that some of the lies or the propaganda that have been running are revealed and people see things more clearly. You know, we know that the way forward to move beyond harm and negativity and hatred is to you know, to have truth exposed. Yeah, and to be able to forgive, but also act in integrity. Yeah, so the square between Mars, still sitting in these middle degrees of Gemini, square Venus. It's a polarity war, if you like, between the masculine and the feminine. Let's call it between the Earth and humanity. That's a terrible juxtaposition, but and I say the Earth because Venus in Virgo has a great deal to do with the sanctity of Earth and the preciousness of Earth and the seasons of Earth and the fecundity of Earth, the capacity for Earth to provide our needs. You know, without Earth, we don't have food, we don't have water. Yeah. So, an Earth itself and the feminine is under a fairly sustained assault here in this third week of September by Mars. How we manifest or how we feel that in our life on a practical level. Look, it might be that there are conflicts within yourself between, living sustainably versus living in the, use and throw away, because Mars and Gemini's got a great deal to do with use once and throw it away, use once and throw it away. And Virgo's got a great deal to do with recycling and the sustainability and the ongoing viability of work and ethics and principles. In this third week, or the beginning of the third week, the moon's just crossed the North Node. Uranus would have done that around the 13th, 12th and the 13th of September. And here by the 15th, it's up to 19 degrees. So those 3 days, I'm hoping that there are some breakthroughs. I'm hoping that, the common people, the people who have reason, the people who can see through the lies and the propaganda are having victories. I notice there's a yod set up between Mars in Gemini, the South Node point in this degree of harm, evil, hatred, and the Chiron. So I'm hopeful that we turn some corner and we have some victories. Maybe in Australia we'll have victories for the trade union movement and victories so that we can raise the wages. I think it's been at least a decade that the cost of living's been increasing in Australia and the wages have been going backwards. So that's just one example where I'm hoping we have breakthroughs and victories for the ordinary people. I'll move it on one more week through to the 22nd, which is the beginning of the last week of September. And you'll see the Saturn-Uranus square still sitting there. It's almost like a noose around our necks that we have to try and loosen and lift off. The moon's, the past life point's still sitting in these degrees of harm. Uranus is still sitting in the position of global ambition. So let's unite our vision of the heart. The moon now, that started out in Scorpio at the beginning of the month and moved through Aquarius and through Taurus, has now reached some kind of a crescendo point to do with power and leadership and control. Not quite sure what that will be about. Maybe there'll be some things with on the world scene with leaders. It could be Israel, it could be China, it could be Russia, it could be America, but issues to do with who's in control and leadership. Yeah, and that's of course because the moon in Leo on a personality level has that energy of the first ray of will and power. So we have a power struggle, fairly power struggle of kind of epic proportions, and you might see that manifesting around that third week of September. But I'm reminded also that the sun is about to leave Virgo. Here it is at the end of Virgo. And in a couple of days' time, by the time we get to the 24th of September, we'll move into Libra. And then, of course, we are into what we describe in the Maitreya Theosophy as All Angel Week, as we approach the Festival of All Angels and the Festival of Archangel Michael. And that is that last week. I might just go forward a couple of days. And so there we have the 24th. And then between the 24th and if I take it up into the 29th, there we have the Festival of All Angels, the festival that celebrates the Archangel Michael and the Lady Archangel Faith. And this is a window, a vortex of spiritual energies that descend every year during that week, and they culminate on the 29th of September. And here we have the moon back to where it was a month earlier, again crossing that very volatile, difficult part of human karma that is erupting like a boil, the old hatred, the old evil. And so let's find a place. Look, it could be nature, it could be a meditation group, it could be a church, it could be deep within your own heart that we pray for the banishment of evil and that the forces of justice, divine justice, begin to undo this deadlock. Yeah, this Saturn nodal Uranus deadlock that is tying humanity in this knot. Yeah, and so because of course what we have externally on Earth playing out is human karma and World War III, but what we have on the inner levels of Earth is victory. And the victory has already been achieved, the victory already exists, and it's up to us to bring the victorious energy of love and divine justice and divine truth down into the world. It's a descending energy of holiness, of power, of compassion. And as it descends, and however long this takes, this is the work that we do. Okay, that's my take on September. I'll leave you to contemplate that. This has been Chandra from Living in Light, Star Astrology Healing.com. Bye for now.